about a decade. I started with the Center for Advanced Spatial Technology, which is CAST at the U of A, where the East Training Lab is here in Northwest Arkansas. And I used to teach geospatial technology all over Arkansas, 7 other states that East used to be in. So I know GIS and this stuff, as well as environmental. My love is environmental. That's what my master's thesis was. And so water quality has kind of been my focus. That's what I'm doing now. So I'm with the Illinois River Watershed Partnership. And I'll just say really quickly, because to say all that's a lot. So what I can provide to you not only is a really cool project that we're doing with on the upwards of about 15 East labs here in Northwest Arkansas. We're doing ecological monitoring. That means you actually get to go out to the stream and doing a physical assessment of what actually lives in it. We check for what we call macroinvertebrates, basically little bugs that live in the water that don't have vertebra, and like crawfish and little things that you tie on flies to go trout fishing with. That's what macroinvertebrates are. But it's also a visual representation. Do you guys have a drone?
We don't, but that's a possibility.
Okay, I know there's got to be one out of the 15 or 16 East labs in Springdale. Bill Mills over at Central Junior High is also on board. I've worked with Bill in the past doing big Red Cross projects, so we'll be a team together also. Abigail Farrell at J.L. Kelly, and then Brittany Berry at Helen Tyson. So those are some of the Springdale schools, and then all of the other ones pretty much too. So.
Guys, if you need to go to lunch, go. Mine that are part of the project, please stay.
Okay. See you guys later. Hopefully.
You want to stay? Then stay. She's like, never mind. Then stay, girl. Scoot over here. So these are mostly 9th graders that were introduced to it a little bit last year.
Okay.
So,
awesome. So you kind of heard my spiel when I came with this
Edmondson.
Yeah. Okay. What we've got going on now is that we are at the position of funding, which is awesome to be at. The one reason I'm here for the Illinois River, I'll give this a quick snapshot too. When I left CAST and I stopped teaching for East GIS, I founded a nonprofit called Native Expeditions, and I worked with it, and I'm still the CEO of it, but we lost our funding with the administration change. We were federally funded through the Forest Service, and I mainly worked in the Ouachitas, and that ended. I was supposed to be funded through 2018. So now I'm with Illinois. However, I do have a whole lot of connections with a lot of different agencies because I have worked all over the state. And I know that y'all aren't ready to get real jobs yet. You're only 9th graders, but you know, as you progress, and if you do stay in East, I highly recommend it because some of the possibilities that you have with the software on these computers, the more you can do and learn in those skill sets, you have no idea where it can put you. I'm going to give you just a few snapshots of that real quick because I think this is really important to hear. Because it wasn't available to like our age whenever we grew up. East didn't exist until like 97-ish. So I'll start with GIS because that's my academic and professional training. That stands for Geographic Information Systems, which is literally the hardest software to learn in this room.
Yep.
It started out as a $25,000 software, and then as it progressed through East, and Arkansas has literally been the flagship for geospatial information because of CAST, and we were part of the founders. I'm not with CAST anymore, but I still work with them. They're part of the founders of East. East kind of started as doing a mapping project, and that mapping project led to, you know, pictures and papers and that kind of thing. Whether you're mapping fire hydrants for your city, you know, now we have such amazing smartphones that have Google Maps on them, and so you can see pretty much wherever you want to go. But it doesn't give the details of the environment and the landscape that you can go out and get and see with your own eyes and map with the GPS or with your phone now. It used to be that you couldn't even really get a good GPS signal until 2000. That's when the military that owns all the satellite turned off selective availability that sent kind of a scrambled signal to the GPS units on the earth that weren't military, and now everybody does everything with it. And so things that you see, like, oh, this is where an invasive species is, or this is where a meth lab is. This is where, like the things that you can only see with your naked eye that you're not necessarily going to see from the, cockpit of a plane or a satellite. Not to say that that's what you need to go and develop a project around, but they do happen. So GIS is pretty powerful because it helps make all sorts of decisions. Because when you put layers together.
That's the last one.
Okay.
For a while.
So when I talk about layers, and this is a really super easy snapshot of what GIS is. All of those layers can be forms of, like if you take a picture of the surface of the earth, that's imagery, okay? That's what the land, whether there's buildings on it, whether there's lakes, streams, rivers, whatever. All of those lakes, streams, rivers, roads, buildings, bodies of vegetation. You have a forest here, you have a prairie there, you have a cow farm over there. Those are classified in 3 different ways. That image says, depending on what scale it is, if you're looking really close to it, the scale numbers are bigger. If you're zoomed way far out and you can't see the cow, you can only see the barn where the cow goes into. So that's a larger scale, I guess you could say, or a smaller scale. As that scale changes, it depends on whether or not you classify those things as points, like it's a little bitty point, it's a car in a parking lot. Or if you're zoomed way out and you're looking at the whole state, what would be a point? A whole city could be a point on a map. And lines, what would be lines on a map? Roads, rivers, streams, anything that's linear. And polygons could print any area. It could be, if you're zoomed way in, it could be each car in that parking lot. We want to know how many cars park in a huge Walmart parking lot, or it could be how many schools are in Springdale, how many cities are in Washington or Benton County. Okay, so it depends on the scale. So that's how geographers have to think, or cartographers, which are map makers. I stepped out of cartography in a large part because I don't like to sit behind a computer all the time. I like to be out in the world talking and doing things. And I grew up, I won't say hunting, I have hunted, but fishing and camping and hiking and all that kind of stuff. So I really love the outdoors. And my relationship with the outdoors is wanting to protect it to some degree and conserve areas. And that's part of what the Illinois River Watershed does. Because what we do, y'all are in the Beaver Water District, White River, Beaver Lake, okay? We all get our drinking water from Beaver Lake, but where do you think most of the urban centers of Northwest Arkansas put their wastewater?
Take a guess, guys.
Some of it does go back into Beaver Lake. We do have wastewater treatment facilities in Fayetteville that release on the east side of Fayetteville, and it goes back into Beaver Lake. In Springdale, y'all are on the east side of Springdale, and so it gets released back into Beaver Lake. And so there's that recycling system. But think about everybody that lives in the western corridor. So Bentonville and Cave Springs, parts of Lowell, parts of Fayetteville. There's a wastewater treatment on the west side of Fayetteville. It's down off of Weddington. That all gets dumped into the Illinois. And so the prospect of, let's see, do we have any kind of regional maps?
We can in just a second.
Okay. Going up on a smart screen somewhere?
Yep.
Okay, so, or, hey, I brought something. I think it's on there. Way better. Never give up on paper. All right, so can you help me hold this?
Yes.
So as you can see, Benton County, Bentonville, Rogers, Bethel Heights, Springdale, all of this, Fayetteville. So this is all of the Illinois River. And as it gets over here, what does it look like? Does it look urban? No, it's very green. And so as the Illinois River crosses the state line over here, just south of Siloam Springs, there's a little lake right here. But as it goes through this part of mostly forest, it becomes a scenic river. And that scenic river, it's literally like a canoe and kayak highway. I mean, it's got outfitters just all up and down the roads, all along, just like the Buffalo, just like the Mulberry River, the Kings, if you guys have ever floated or kayaked in any way. It is a big dang deal for floaters. And if you're gonna float a river, what do you want the water to look like? Do you want to fall in it and it be all algae and funky smelling? And yeah, no. So part of what this area has happened, and I'll just set this down right here, what's happened in the last, pretty much your lifetime. Y'all are all what, 13-ish? 13, 14? Yeah, that's right. My daughter's 15. She was in 9th grade last year. What am I thinking? So really in the last 20 years, and definitely part of your lifetime, when the Clinton era and the 90s, Northwest Arkansas just went nuts in population boom. And this area has been in the top 10 places to live in the country for nearly 20 years. And the population has gone from around 250,000 to 600,000. And so if this is, think of a bathtub. I don't know if any of you guys ever take baths anymore, unless everybody just takes showers. But this is a big bathtub. And the beginning of this bathtub, where all the water pours in it, is up here in all of this urban environment. So think parking lots, and think lots and lots of subdivisions, and lots of toilets. How many toilets do you have in your house? 2, 3, some people 4. Okay, so every toilet that's in that house is going into the Illinois River. Okay, what else is an impact? Okay, say maybe we don't have them necessarily in the cities, but all in this other green area and around the cities. What's something else that impacts the watershed besides our wastewater that we empty into it? What do we grow up here? Do we grow crops?
It smells.
We don't grow crops in Northwest Arkansas. We don't have the soil for it. What do we grow? We're the #1 in the world.
Chickens.
Right. We grow chickens. How many chickens do we grow in Benton County or Washington County every year?
Doesn't each like city or each big region have like around 28 million chickens or something like that?
Yes. 26 to 28 million chickens in either Benton or Washington County alone. Now, are there chickens grown in other places? Absolutely. But if you look at a map of the concentration of chickens grown in this state, it's a big dark spot in Benton and Washington County, because each one of those huge long chicken houses, they don't smell like they used to. Like y'all don't get to smell the smells that we used to, as we're driving down country back roads, you'd smell these horrible smells because they couldn't control the uric acid in the chicken litter, basically chicken pee and chicken poop. And if it stays wet, then it smells really bad. But now they've completely enclosed them. They have a whole bunch of regulations, and it's a monopoly by, George's and Tyson and all those guys that control what the chicken market is. So, but the chickens still make a whole lot of poop. Where does it go? It used to go in the Illinois River for the most part. Yes, it used to get spread out all over hay fields, all over Northwest Arkansas, to make the hay grow better for the cows to eat. And we grow a lot of cows up there too. So we don't grow crops, and just to give you a little bit of other geographic trivia, where do we grow crops in Arkansas?
Think about the map of the state of Arkansas.
So the biggest rivers in the country. The mighty,
Starts with a D is the region name. Rhymes with Elta.
Delta.
Okay. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because I think it's important that you know where your food comes from and how you protect it and how you protect the water that you drink. So the Delta does grow most of our food, and it's the mighty Mississippi corridor that grows the majority of that food. We are the breadbasket of this nation. We are the #1 rice producers in the country, and we're the #1 chicken producers in the country. So next time you eat some chicken and rice, yay, Arkansas! So, and just think about it. How many guys eat at, let's name some of the restaurants that you can drive through really quickly and get some chicken nuggets. KFC, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King, Slim Chicken, Cane's,
A whole bunch of different things, Steak and Shake.
Steak and Shake. What else?
I know there's grills.
Popeyes, Dairy Queen, Brahms.
There's a whole bunch of different places.
I went to the bank yesterday to resolve a problem with my account, and a guy goes, "Man, you must like Chick-fil-A as much as I do." And I was like, "Yeah, I had a meeting there, and, and I had gone for breakfast that morning." So it's something that we kind of need to keep in the back of our minds, and this technology that we have helps us make better decisions, and that's why you are in East. Okay, think of it that way. These are nothing but tools. They're not your life. They're not meant to be, your sole purpose of living. They're to help you make better decisions. ArcGIS, which is the software for doing the mapping, a lot of, if you get into the software, you see they're represented as little hammers. So you've got a toolbox, an ARC toolbox. So that helps you make a decision with whatever you do to data that you're going to process. And you can ask data to be labeled. You can ask data to be done in many different formats. We had a GIS for this project at CAST last spring that you guys didn't get to come to because y'all came on a little bit later. And basically what that involved is that we took all the tributaries within the Illinois River watershed, and then we wanted to find out, we had data from a private company called Natural State Streams, which went out in their kayaks and their GPS units, and they literally went out and mapped where there was a whole lot of erosion going on in the stream channel. So sometimes if you've ever been in a canoe or a kayak or a boat and you see a really tall, where there's all kinds of dirt and no rock holding it back, every time there's a flood, that dumps soil into the stream. And one of the biggest impacts on a stream is total dissolved solids, TDS. And when those suspended sediments are in the stream, there's all kind of stuff that's locked into the soil. If you're a landowner that raises cattle, if you're a landowner that raises chickens, and you spread that cow poo or that chicken stuff on the fields, it's locked into the soil. And when that soil falls off into the stream, that means whatever that was in the soil gets dumped into the stream. And so that is one of the biggest polluters of our streams, especially after we have a big flood event like we had April 29th, which that was one to tell all for. There was a lot of flooding going on. So what our purpose, and we're really trying to move forward with this project, is all of these areas with these streams that are on what we call the 303D list. It's not 303. Dang, it's 303. It basically means it's an impaired stream. And so this stream is impaired for either pathogens, which can be things like fecal coliform, bacteria and other things that come from, what's fecal mean? Poo, basically. Anything that comes from mammal waste, we'll say, because we're mammals. Chickens are birds, but and then also things like cows and so on. It can be coyotes, raccoons, all of that poos on the landscape. So when the soil cleaves off into the stream, it puts a big load of phosphorus that's also in that as well. Phosphorates and nitrates. Where I work in Cave Springs, are y'all familiar with a little town that you kind of have to jog through to go to the airport? Anybody ever driven to the airport? Okay, you come from the little exit that by JB Hunt, and you go down 264, and then you have to turn through this little town. That's where I work. We have acquired an old church that we fixed up, and then across from the road is a lake. It used to be Lake Keith, now it's our lake. We call it Partners Lake. And that lake is made from the discharge of a cave. The cave in the back of our property releases thousands and thousands of gallons of water a day, which actually creates Osage Creek. It's dammed up at the road, but as it's released through the spillway on the other side, that's what forms Osage Creek. And our lake, you can see any given time when it's really, really hot and it hasn't rained much, it's going to be covered in algae. Why do you think that might be? What lives in the cave that can add nutrients to the water? We have about 20,000 bats that live in the cave. We have endangered species bats, the Ozark gray bat, so it's federally protected. So we have a big, tall metal fence around it, and if you go in that cave, there's a sign, $100,000 fine. So that's how protected those guys are. As well as the Ozark blind cavefish, which I get to see on the regular because I do environmental ed and macroinvertebrate education at our stream channel. We have it channeled off. It used to be a trout run is what they used this area for, and people fished out of it. And there is fish in the lake that people fish out of it still. The water's very cold because it's cave water. It doesn't have a lot of oxygen in the water because it's cave water, and so that's why they do falls as they come out to oxygenate the water to help the fish and other things that want to grow in there. But the bats that are inside the cave make that water extremely nitrate rich because of their poo. Basically, we're talking about lots of poo today. I'm trying to make this politically correct. The issue that we have, why we have algae on the lake, is because all of that nitrates that are in the water creates algae that grows on the bottom, and once they eat up enough phosphorus, it dies and floats to the top, and it smells, god awful. It's gross. You would not want to get it on you, no different than if you're at that map, you're taking that canoe trip in Oklahoma, and you've got phosphorates and nitrates that are too much in the water from everything that contributes to at the top of our bathtub in the urban areas, and then all the chicken houses and cattle farms along the way, and by the time it gets to Oklahoma, it doesn't look so great. And so the last 20 years, they have been, basically Oklahoma's been suing the crap out of Arkansas because they want that water clean. They want to be able to use it for recreation. And it also makes, let's see, this huge lake down here, Lake 10 Killer. And it's part of where you've got Adair, Stillwell, Tahlequah. Tahlequah is kind of the beginning of it, and that's where the headquarters of the Cherokee Nation are. And so they have become our partners in helping keeping it clean also. We're trying to get them over here to partner with us more. They don't have quite the education infrastructure that we have here in Northwest Arkansas as far as environmental ed. So anyway, that is the big project in a nutshell. So what can y'all do? We are going to make some more maps. It's going to be a little bit more advanced GIS. Doesn't mean you can't do it, because whenever we do these projects, we get CAST involved. The guys have been keeping up with all of that technology all the time, and I kind of assist. I don't do the thing like I used to do some image processing, because what we're looking at now is that we want to see where all of these landowners along the streams have really high erosion rates. Those really high erosion rate areas where the streams are, we want to offer these landowners the possibility to either, this is something that we do year round, is we plant trees along stream channels to stabilize the bank. And we also do full-on stream bank restoration, which can cost up to like $80,000. We did it in an area along Osage Creek, and this is something that you might, it's going to be September 13th. I don't know if they could get out of school, but we can take video and we can show it to you guys later what happened. One of our board members is a cattle farmer, and he had his redone. So there's all kinds of incentives for landowners. They get tax credits, they can put into conservation easements, they can get kickbacks, and all sorts of ways to help repair their land so that the river isn't taking so much sediment into the stream and then taking it on over to Oklahoma. So that's what our goal is over the next few years. We have 4 streams in the Illinois River watershed that are specifically impaired for either sulfates, nitrates, for pathogens like fecal coliform. And there's 3 of them that are pathogens, which is Moores Creek, Muddy Fork, and Sager. Sager is the only one that's in Benton County, and it's over there by Siloam Springs. Moores and Muddy Creek are more like by Prairie Road and Lincoln. The closest one that is also impaired is the creek that runs out of Lake Fayetteville that kind of goes through Tawnytown and on into the western corridor of Savoy and empties into the Illinois River by Weddington Woods area, just a little bit before Oklahoma. However, Osage Creek, which y'all aren't too far from here, has been on the 303D list in the past. And so we're kind of looking for stream teams to literally just monitor these streams in whatever areas that you can get access to, whether you know somebody that lives along it or can find. I can give you landowner lists. We have those thanks to GIS. I did those with students at the training, and then it's just a matter of putting it in the system. You know, ask for all of the parcels. Anybody that owns land is called a parcel. Owns a parcel within 50 to 100 feet of a stream corridor and anything that intersects that. So that's a list that can get popped out into an Excel spreadsheet. And whether we're contacting them or y'all are contacting them to find out areas where you might want to access to take an assessment. What is an assessment? So macroinvertebrates are the little things that live in the water. Basically involves a kick net. You can put waders on if you want to. If the stream looks kind of funky and you don't want to, get it on your skin, usually it's not that bad. If it's warm enough, I'm in the stream with chacos on. If you don't want to, we're going to have access to let you borrow waders also. So I wrote a grant with the Game and Fish Commission so that I get to basically not rent, because you're not going to pay me anything, but if y'all want to set up a time that you go out and access the stream, I'm going to be with you and basically lead you through that. Now there is also a training October 7th, which is a Saturday, that we'll be doing with the Game and Fish Commission and a chemistry instructor. So we'll be doing water chemistry. The water chemistry part of this is not absolutely necessary, but y'all are 9th graders. How many of you guys will be in science classes there forward? So you know you're going to be taking chemistry. So it's a really good exposure to kind of like how chemistry works and the value of it, because I'll be honest, that was the one thing in college that kept me from being a doctor. I wasn't ready for it at the time. I could probably do it pretty well now, but chemistry is not necessarily easy. Some people get it, some people, it's a struggle because there's a lot of math, right? But understanding how it's important, not only for pharmaceuticals and drugs that we all have to take at some time in our lives, but how it impacts our lives and all the water that we drink and all kinds of sorts of stuff. So we'll have that as part of the education component of it as well. But it's not required that you do water chemistry. It's available, basically. So if you come to part of the session, we'll probably split it in 2 where they could do either or both. On the 7th. The other thing is, the reason why I asked you if you had a drone is because we would really like some drone footage, and it's my understanding that you're supposed to have, you know, a certified pilot's license to run a
We got
drone.
kids that are in the process.
Okay, that's a good thing. I don't have one, so that's why I ask. And I don't want anybody to get in trouble. I don't want them to get shot down. I don't want them, you know, whatever the case is. If you're flying over private land ownership, you know, that is always a risk. Typically, they don't mess with kids, but we always want to ask for permission and do things the right way, that according to the law, that is, you know, important as well. So part of going out and kicking for macroinvertebrates in the creek, if you or someone you know in East can draw, because part of the EPA monitoring handbook requires that an actual hand drawing. So, you know, like, okay, there's forest on the side, or there's, you know, an agricultural field or a prairie, or it's solid rock, or whatever area that you go to, you're wanting to do an actual drawing of what it looks like, and what, you know, how far the stream bank is on one side or the other, you know, whether or not you can see fish in the creek, that kind of thing. Just everything that you would see visually. As well as take photos and take video. So that's the modern thing. The federal government is always a decade or more behind in terms of technology. I literally went to do a conference in South Dakota in Sioux Falls at the National Geospatial Imaging Consortium that's like buried underground, highest security ever. They ran all my computers and my cell phones and my drives and made sure I didn't have any viruses.
You still have time. We're not going to head this class off.
Okay. Had to go through high security, and then I go in there and I plug in my flash drive to the computer, and they have Windows XP. And I was like, we're in Windows Vista or 10 or whatever at the time I was there. I was like, why are y'all so far behind? I was like, oh, it's the federal government. Okay, I get it. And since I work with them the last 5 years, it's everywhere. So, but another thing to give you guys, I say I know a lot of folks all over the state. Come on in.
This is Savannah. She's an artist.
Okay, cool.
Sapphire.
You missed my spiel. There are a huge percentage of individuals in all federal agencies that are at retirement age. And y'all are within 5 to 10 years of them all retiring when y'all graduate here and you move on to go to college or whatever it is that you want to do. And some people say, well, I don't want to do sciencey stuff or whatever. There are journalists there, there are administrators there. They're really good jobs with amazing benefits in the federal government. Just so you know, like the Forest Service, the Fish and Wildlife, you don't have to do the science stuff. There's all kinds of marketing and things that are business related, as well as events and other things. That's something that's really interesting, that the National Park Service has become a little bit more modernized than some of the other federal agencies. They're offering music events. I don't know if you've heard of any of the stuff that's going on at the Buffalo River right now, but they're offering kind of entertainment things where they're having musicians and other stuff. So that's a whole other deal. And getting back to video real quick before I leave off, and I'll talk to you about drawing here in a second. How many of you guys have done any video like she's got going on right now and actually worked with either Final Cut or iMovie or, okay, so all of y'all. Do y'all know how much a video editor makes, we'll say in Arkansas, per hour? Did I tell you this last time?
I looked this up. I remember once I looked this up.
Make an estimate then.
I totally forgot.
You can estimate around the price.
Okay, a doctor makes it essentially what an hour, you think? A regular general practitioner. If you go, they typically charge you, you see a doctor, 15 minutes to an hour. So, and they have different levels of what they charge you for it, either between $50 and $150 in an hour. If you're a video editor, you're making a 30-second commercial. How much does a 30-second commercial cost to put on air?
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the commercial. Let's say something local. You have to go out in the field. You have to have a videographer. You have to have an editor. You might need a After Effects person. You know what After Effects is?
That's all I got.
Okay, that's all that guy? Okay, awesome. You're gonna make me bank, dude. Anybody that knows After Effects, that's a high-end skill. Typically, not videographers, but editors, because the editor is what makes a movie, is what puts it all together, puts the audio files together, puts the video files together, puts the After Effects files together. They make anywhere from $250 to $500 an hour in Arkansas, if they're good. You don't have to go to college for it. It's recommended, so you have the highest level of skills that you can get. But if you're extremely talented, you're going to get hired on your talent. If you're able to produce flash files and After Effects, you can market that as your own business online. Okay? What does a editor make, we'll say, in Hollywood, California? An hour. Anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 an hour.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Okay. So that's when East are like, oh, what am I going to do with East? What am I going to get out of this? I'm like, if you take it to the level that, you know, you stick with it, and I know these softwares are hard, okay? I literally wanted to throw computers out of the windows in the 90s when I was trying to do GIS. It was so clunky. It was so frustrating. I get the circle wheel of death just hanging out forever. I'm like, when is this going to work, you know? And our GIS, here's my back story with East. Okay, we're 7 years out. In 2010, I had a student that was a senior at Dardanelle High School, and he wanted to do a hydrology project, which is similar to what we're kind of talking about now. He wanted to see in a GIS what would happen to the landscape on a map if the Dardanelle Dam broke. Because every dam that's ever built, there's usually a village that was there or a city that was there before it. And they had to move the people out, just like Montenay is out underneath Beaver Lake, and there were homes there in the past. So he did the historical data. He also had to get a DEM, a digital elevation model of the landscape, and that's taken from either LiDAR or whatever else shot from a plane. And we had to get volume of water that was in the lake, so we had to talk to USGS. And so we kind of had to collect some data, but there had been no East kid that had ever tried a project like this. Just nobody ever thought of it. Nobody ever took that challenge on. It took him a few months to get the data together. It didn't take him that long to make the maps once he had the data, and that's usually the issue, is getting the data that you need. He made, I think, 2 or 3 maps, and I said, hun, he wasn't a talker, he wasn't social, he didn't like to boast about anything that he did. He was a very quiet student. And I said, I want you and your facilitator, which was Sandy Williams at Dardanelle. She's been an East facilitator for over 10 years. And we went to the GIS conference that's typically held in the fall in Eureka Springs. He talked for 5 minutes and showed the map that he created. And the people in the room knew what it took to take that map. And he got an anonymous 4-year scholarship to Arkansas Tech for a map. Okay? I have had other students that in Monticello, Arkansas, which is the Delta, the South, is where the trees grow, is where all the pine trees grow. They also, student in high school, he was a senior. He wanted to know how to map something with GPS, and I used to map for the city of Fayetteville. So I at the time that I was working with CAST, I did the GPS curriculum for East and put it online. That was the first time that we were doing online stuff for East. And this kid, because he knew how to run a GPS unit, walked straight out of high school and worked for the city of Monticello and got a really good job. And that happens a lot. So this skill set that you're building in here, I know y'all are in 9th grade, you got a few more years to go, but start building a portfolio now. I mean, just stick it in a file folder with a piece of paper, stick it on the back end flash drive, hide it in your safe at your house, whatever the case is. Because when you come out of here, this is something that builds a future for you. And I know maybe you haven't heard that from other people, but it absolutely will. And I hope that some of y'all maybe get to go to conference, which is really fun with 2,000 other East students from all over Arkansas and other states. But back to you in drawing. I know I'm talking real fast. But part of this project, the Illinois River Watershed is who I work for, partnership. And here's some other cards. The software is a digital version. This also requires hand drawing. We want hand drawings of the landscape at the stream channels, where they actually go and do the collection for assessing what is in the stream. So if y'all are out there as a team, you've got your videographer that's doing, taking the digital format of that, and then photos, and if we have a drone for you guys. But we also need a hand drawer, because the naked eye sees things in the environment that not necessarily the digital thing can. Okay, you can probably see the fish that are down at the bottom, or a camera can't because of glare or whatever. Little things within the stream bank, whether it's a big cut bank of certain types of soil, or it's rock, or it's, it's got riprap on it. Y'all know what riprap is, where they put stones and rocks and concrete to stabilize a bank. That, like in cities, they do it a lot, so it doesn't erode real bad. Whatever is going on in that stream area, because wherever y'all can access the stream, it might be just right next to a bridge, because you're gonna pull off the highway and like, well, we're just do it here, because this is easy. You may not be able to get a hold of a landowner that you can go like a couple miles up and see something that's more picturesque and nature or whatever, but that's the challenge. We're going to give you landowner data so you can contact these people and find out, oh, there's a road that goes almost right to the river, and this scale is zoomed way out, so you can't see the landowners. But we'll zoom in inside the GIS, and I'll take some screenshots of your stream channels, probably pretty quickly right out the gate, so y'all can see some of the areas and what roads that you want to access that are close to it, and find what landowners are in that area, so that you can think like a soldier. I went to Central Junior High, and I'll let y'all keep that. This is something that I try to introduce to teams, okay, that try to work together. And it's a warrior mentality, okay? It's called, I want you to look this up when I leave. I'm not going to explain all about it right now, but just think about it. It's called indomitable spirit, okay? And that's something, what is that for? It's something about staying on task to some degree, and it's inside and it's personal. And it's a really good philosophy to kind of like start wrapping your head around now in 9th grade, because things that y'all do in the next 4 years are going to shape a lot of your adulthood. And you have opportunities in this classroom that the kids that aren't in this classroom aren't going to come close to. So you make it what you want. Okay? And contact me if you have questions about whatever. Even if it's not involving this project, I will absolutely answer my texts on my phone at reasonable hours. And I will absolutely answer any email. And it can be about anything, whatever. Okay? Any questions you have for me? So we have a small window of warm weather, in the next couple of months to get out in the stream before you have to have waders. So think about, when you want to get started on that. And we'll just set a date with me, and we'll meet up and decide where y'all want to go.
They'll get stuff going.
I'm gonna send them some, and that's the thing, if you could help them or kind of make them do, is to email me in a group with all of their emails that are on the same team, so I can email it back and forth, because I want to send them the landowner data and some screenshots of the creek,
Okay.
so y'all know like what works best. And you're always welcome, since you're doing Osage Creek, you're always welcome to come out to the center and start there.
Okay. Cool. Sound good, guys?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah.
Guys,
Sorry if I talked a whole
oh,
lot.
no, you're good. This was